The conversation around Africa powering the world has shifted from a theoretical to a multi-billion-dollar execution phase. As of early 2026, Africa's energy potential is being realized through three primary pillars: Africa's solar dominance, green hydrogen exports, and the control of green minerals. Africa holds roughly 60% of the world's best solar resources. Yet historically, Africa has attracted less than 2% of global renewable investment. That is changing rapidly, and 2026 is being called Africa's Energy Decisive Execution Year. Experts expect 17 gigawatts of new electricity capacity to be added across the African continent this year alone, with over 50% coming from solar. Because of falling battery and panel costs in Africa, rooftop solar is now outcompeting diesel generators for commercial and industrial users in regions with unstable grids in Africa. While South Africa, Egypt, and Morocco lead in scale, countries like Kenya, Nigeria, and Ethiopia are rapidly expanding their portfolios to fuel the African industrialization. Africa is positioning itself as the future decarbonized energy hub for Europe. Studies estimate West Africa could produce green hydrogen at less than €2.50 per kilogram,
significantly cheaper than current European production costs.
Morocco, a power-to-hydrogen pilot project, is slated for commissioning in 2026, targeting 10,000 tons per year.
Namibia, developing a massive $9.4 billion project intended for both regional use and global export.
Egypt, leveraging the Suez Canal and existing LNG infrastructure to become a primary corridor for hydrogen exports to Europe.
That's Southern Sweden. The global energy transition is physically built using African resources.
Prices. The African continent holds over 30% of the world's critical mineral reserves, including cobalt and copper. The Democratic Republic of Congo remains the dominant global supplier,
with an estimated $24 trillion in untapped mineral wealth. Lithium, Zimbabwe, Mali, Ghana, and Namibia are scaling production, with output expected to grow by 150% by 2030.
In 2026, African mining ministers are pivoting toward localized beneficiation.
Instead of just exporting raw ore, African nations are pushing for domestic refining and
Processing to capture more of the global value chain with African finished goods. While the potential is vast for Africa to power the world, two main hurdles remain.
The financing gap. To meet 2030 goals, the African continent requires hundreds of billions in infrastructure investment.
Specifically in transmission grids, which are currently the bottleneck for new African projects.
Execution risk. Many African projects remain in the political promise or study phase. Africa is bridging the gap between a signed MOU and a functioning power plant. This is the primary focus of 2026. Determining when Africa is ready to power the world requires looking at two different timelines. The transition phase, 2026 to 2033, and the powerhouse phase, 2040.
According to the latest 2026 outlooks from the IEA and the African Union, we are currently in the first
decade of acceleration. Here is the roadmap for Africa's emergence as a global energy titan. Experts have identified 2026 as the pivotal inflection point where the African continent moves from planning to execution.
Annual solar installations in Africa are expected to grow by over 40% starting this year.
By 2028, Africa is projected to double its current solar footprint. For the first time, battery storage is being deployed at a utility scale across Nigeria, Ghana, and South Africa. To stabilize the grid, Africa is solving the intermittency issue that previously held back large-scale exports. The early 2030s are marked as the period when Africa becomes a net exporter of green molecules, hydrogen, and ammonia. Projects like the Southern Hydrogen Corridor, connecting North Africa to Italy, Austria, and Germany,
are expected to be operational by 2030, delivering millions of tons of green African hydrogen to Europe.
Under the Nairobi Declaration, African nations aim to reach 300 gigawatts of renewable capacity by 2030.
Up from a net African output of roughly 60 gigawatts in 2022.
By 2033, the moonshot goals of Agenda 2063 aim for African countries to move away from raw mineral exports to domestic refining of lithium and cobalt, essentially powering the world's EV batteries from African soil. The African Powerhouse Phase, 2040-2063, is the era where Africa is predicted to dominate the global energy market.
By 2040, the IEA projects that Africa's internal demand will grow 8-fold.
But the surplus capacity in wind, solar, and geothermal will allow Africa to capture 15%.
The African Union's master plan envisions the continent as a fully integrated, high-income global player by 2063, fueled by African projects like the Grand Inga Dam,
which theoretically has the capacity to power half of the African continent alone.
The consensus from the 2026 Africa Sustainability Outlook is that while the potential is ready today,
the African infrastructure for transmission lines and subsea cables will reach critical mass between 2030 and 2035.
In the next episode, we will cover Africa's potential to feed the world with 60% of the world's uncultivated arable land.
Please like and subscribe to our channel for more global economic trends content.
Thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode.